Cheers, Muses! I'm your host, Erica Papillion-Posey, and welcome to another episode of Musings of a Mezzo, where you can find inspiration in the arts, culture, and lifestyle, all things muse-worthy. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can get notifications on all new episodes. Today's episode is entitled Agony and Ecstasy, Confessions of an Indie Artist. And let me start with a quote. Many days I want to quit. And at every hour, my art, my muse defies me. Today we're going to talk about my trials, my tribulations, the pains that we often face as independent artists. And as an independent artist who works in niche genres like classical music and jazz music, which are unlike pop or popular forms of music, we often are not presented with the opportunity to sign what's called a 360 deal or a 360 contract with a major label because the funds are not there. We don't have the possibility of major monetary backing the way popular artists often do. There are also other reasons why we do not sign 360 deals in the off chance that we're even offered the opportunity. And that is because if you're truly into your art or your art form, your artistry, those 360 deals will require you to sign away for years on end your image, your likeness, your name, your intellectual property, which is for an artist, your life's blood. So you don't want to do that as a true artist. It's not something that you'd want to do because you're not in it for the money. You're in it for the creation of that particular art form. There are many situations where I personally have been faced with to work or not to work. And what do I mean by to work or not to work? I'm talking about internships, for instance. When you've gotten that sheepskin in hand after having completed that degree, there are those who want to try their hand at working in their particular industry for free. Internships are free. It usually is about 3 to 6 months. You go to check that desired employer out, whomever you think your dream employer might be. Get your feet wet. For musicians or the average artist, that internship goes on into perpetuity, it feels like, because often people want you to continue doing your art for free. There have been times where I have worked for free. I have worked for food. I have worked for visibility. What do I mean by visibility? The opportunity to be seen by the right people because the right people will be in the room and hopefully offer you an opportunity to put on a production or showcase your talents at a future date. That's right. I have worked for free. I have worked for food and for the hope of being seen by the right person or the right company or the right entities. It's a sad state of affairs, the way we treat arts in this country in particular. You also have your family, friends, sometimes supporters who say things like, "Oh, you're a singer? Oh, you have to go to school for that? Why do you need to go to school for that?" The kinds of comments and questions that you get are unending, just unending. I remember when I was recording my 2019 album, Better Angels, my mother happened to come to town at that particular time, and I am a full-fledged grown adult. Mind you, Better Angels was recorded in 2019. You can purchase at my website, epapillion-posey.com. The link is in the description below. I digress. My mother was in town while I was recording this record, and it was her very first opportunity to see me in action, to see me in the studio and what it actually meant to record an album. I don't even think she had context or had a backdrop or frame of reference for what she was getting ready to witness. She just knew that she was going to have the opportunity to see me record an album. I let her come into the studio. So she was in the hub, in the heart of the recording studio where we were actually recording. And for the first time ever, she was shocked. For the first time ever, she understood that there was more to it than just standing up to a microphone and singing, that there is a language, that music is a universal language, and that there is a speak that she witnessed amongst us in the recording process that blew her mind because she didn't have ever a frame of reference for it. Now, mind you, I've been singing since elementary school. In some way, I've been singing since elementary school. But in my family, I have always been the black sheep of the family and always done things that were outside of the realm of what a normal person should do in families. Not to mention that no one in my family is musically inclined. So being a musician was just seen as something frivolous, something trivial, and not worth effort or dedication or discipline. So to her, it was just a whole nother world, a whole nother frame of being. And if that weren't crazy enough, I have also had situations where I've shown up to sing someplace and been told in no uncertain terms, just blend into the background. We don't want to see you really. And, you should just be like elevator music. Just blend into the wallpaper. Literally blend into the wallpaper. Or we didn't make as much money if it's like a restaurant or if it's a club or something. We didn't make as much money as we thought we were going to make tonight, so we won't be able to pay you this time. That was never discussed. That was never what was planned. That was never agreed upon. People just assume that they can just dismiss you in this way and that your talent is not worth even the honesty of exchange. Musicians are treated so frivolously that many venues, many places that offer live music will not sign a contract with you because it's just not it's just not worth the time. It's just not something that they think necessary to do with you, which is just crazy to me because as a person that performs often in Europe, the artist is treated completely different than here in the United States. Pay? Who needs pay? If you're lucky, you're offered $50, $75 on a good night, $100 and dinner. And that's $50 and dinner, or $75 and dinner. $100, don't expect dinner. Maybe a drink, but if they pay you $100, don't expect anything else because to them, that's steep. And when I say them, I mean whomever the venue is that is hosting you or presenting you for the evening. Isn't that crazy? And it's very hurtful. It's very disrespectful. Talk about no appreciation, just, no respect. Oftentimes the musician has spent countless hours of preparation and honing of one's skills to get to a point where there's a place of ease, a place of, there's no resistance. There's no sense of preparation. It is our job to show up and make you feel good. And I don't think people see the humanity or appreciate the humanity in that. It's just an insult. It just feels hurtful, but you do it because you love it. Referring back to my quote at the top of this segment, You can't actually defy your muse. You can't say no. If you are a true artist, you do it because you have to. You do it out of necessity, not because you want to. So you're put in situations where you will, on many occasions, accept less than just to get your art out into the world. Talent's treated as throwaway, as a hobby, again, without respect, and that dismissiveness to the art form or artistry. Again, artists here in the United States have such a hard time just making a decent living, performing or toiling in your particular art form. It's just almost impossible to do it. When we were going through COVID, it was the first time that I even realized, because I had never had to sign for unemployment before. But artists, because artists and what you do are considered hobbies by our government, you are not allowed to file for unemployment. Only during COVID were we able to do so. So for the first time ever in history in the United States, were artists afforded the opportunity to file for unemployment, because what we do is not seen as a viable or real career path. Just insane. But capitalism runs amok here in this exceptional country of ours. Payment, compensation are just treated completely different in other parts of the world, because arts, artistry, talent is considered a viable, necessary part of the fabric of the culture and community in those countries. I have sung in various places throughout Europe, and I go, whether it's classical music or jazz music, but classical music in particular, these operas, because it's oftentimes you're singing some type of oratorio or an opera that can be 2, 3, 4 hours long, and they know every word. I don't care how small the town or township is. When you show up, they show up. And because money is never enough, and because it's never plentiful enough, because we're often focused on the creation of, money is secondary to us. And there is rarely an opportunity where we are not mounting some sort of fundraiser or Kickstarter campaign or abundant artist campaign. There are various organizations like South Arts, Jazz South Arts, the Doris Duke Foundation, that do provide wonderful, wonderful grants for artists, but they are not as plentiful as other industries. They exist, but they are not as plentiful as other industries. And we're not in an age anymore where benefactors or patrons are common. They exist. I myself have one or two that I go to often and who have supported me since grad school. But again, like those grants, they are not as plentiful because there just aren't supporters or patrons of the arts, of major institutions like the Carnegie Halls and what have you that have ongoing endowments. The average individual artist, not so lucky many times. I'd like to share a little story with you of an experience that I have of what it feels like to be an artist many days. Creating art is an ecstasy. Creating art is ethereal for me. It's otherworldly for me. It's an out-of-body experience for me. It's divine for me. It feels like the closest thing to God that I can explain. But the agony of it is a juggling act. There's often a balance of, again, is it worth it? there's a constant toil, there's a constant struggle, there's a constant back and forth with trying to get people to appreciate what you are doing and why what you're doing is important, not just to them, but to humanity at large. I was in Italy. I was performing there. I was in Florence, Italy in particular. And Florence, where Michelangelo's David is. Just a little side note, one of my favorite books of all time is The Agony and the Ecstasy, which is the biographical novel of Michelangelo's life. This book that you see here just over my shoulder, it's a 760-page read, but worth every page turn. If you look at my book here, I think about half of the pages are rabbit-eared, because I could so identify with the ecstasy and the agony of being an artist. And I know that someone like Michelangelo, if he, having been one of the most celebrated artists in history, particularly of the High Renaissance period, could be going through those struggles, the same struggles that we're going through today, then our struggles are not made up. They're not without valid gripe. But you forge on, you do it because you have to. It's just in your blood. It's just in your soul to do. So, as I was saying, I went to Florence and I was visiting Museo dell'Opera. It is a museum that sits just near the Duomo, in the corridor that houses the Duomo, literally the main cathedral in the heart of Florence. The museum, one of the museums associated with the Duomo, houses a work called the Pietà. The official name for it is the Deposition. And it's one of the last works that Michelangelo did, where he is it's four figures in this particular statue, this sculpture that he was working on up until his death. It was commissioned in 1547 and not finished until 1555, I think it was, somewhere along there. But you can go there and you can see it to this day. It is life-size. It is magnificent. It is majestic. And Michelangelo depicts himself in the face of Nicodemus. The Virgin Mary is holding the body of Christ. It is an incredible piece of sculpture, again, at the hands of Michelangelo himself. I remember walking into the museum. There was not a soul around. Now, this is July, in the heat of the summer, the heat of tourist season. There's not a soul in the museum except for little old me. And I thought it was really strange because there were tourists everywhere outside. And I walk into a building that houses some of the most important art in the world, and there's no one else present, no one else there. I am taken back a little bit and almost afraid. I had this moment of fear, of fright, because I was surprised that no one else was around. I'm looking up the corridor, looking down the corridor, in front of me, behind me, wondering if another person was going to appear or not. And no one did. There were benches on both sides of the structure itself, of the sculpture itself. And I walk in and I sit there, and inevitably I felt like the statue had come to life, or it was coming to life and going to speak to me. So there was this ecstasy in the moment because I was in the presence of greatness. I was in the presence of one of the greatest creators of all time, by myself, alone. And in that moment, I understood that I needed to forge forward. I needed to continue. I needed to do that I was supposed to do for the love of, and not for validation and not for recognition, and to do what I love and that the rest would come. That moment was defining for me. That moment said to me that you were blessed, you were given this great, wonderful talent and gift by the Almighty, and it is your responsibility as a representative of the Almighty to do that thing, no matter what, no matter what. And if you know the pains that Michelangelo took to create the circumstances under which he had to create, the elements under which he had to create, he was forced to create in some instances, then what am I complaining about? What's the point of me complaining if I have this gift that I can do and do well and make people feel good about? Then it is my human responsibility. It is my moral charge to do just that. And I was so encouraged and so struck by what had happened to me in the moment of visiting that statue that I was moved to create my own version of Agony and Ecstasy, which you can hear on my 2019 album, Better Angels. I'm actually playing it here in the background, and I really hope you enjoy it, but not just enjoy it, but I hope it will give you insight and understanding of what I go through as an artist and what many artists go through. Again, the ecstasy and the agony of creation, of just being in your art, of just toiling in your art and loving your art and loving who you are through your art. So listen to Agony and Ecstasy on my 2019 album, Better Angels. So why is art important? Why should it be important? Art and art creation is a universal way in which we express ourselves. We share our feelings with one another. It serves as a vital, vital gateway in how we connect and relate to others, even in times of crisis. It allows us to express our feelings, emotions, dreams, thoughts in ways that are not always possible in words or actions, especially when those thoughts are complex and difficult. How we appreciate and honor art and artists is a direct reflection of society and culture at large. Art keeps the barbarities and the ugliness of life at bay. Without imagination and creativity, I defy you to live a rich, full, vibrant, meaningful life. And as an artist, I think that I speak for many when I say that I create out of need, as I said earlier, the necessity to bring meaning, resolve, and understanding to the world. That's why we do it. It is an exploration of the perpetual tug of war between harmony and dissonance in our lives and in ourselves, in each other, and in the world. So please learn to value the arts and those that labor in them. The arts are what feed our humanity. And after all, the very act of creating, in my humble opinion, confirms our place in the heavens among the most benevolent of creatures. How can one not sufficiently appreciate and reward such abilities and talents? And when the next opportunity arises to show even a modicum of respect and appreciation for the talents and gifts of an artist, honor their journey, their hours of preparation and honing of their skills. And remember the saying, it often takes years to become an overnight success. Until next time, thank you so very much for joining me in this new episode of Musings of a Mezzo. I'm Erica Papillion-Posey, your host, and don't forget to like and subscribe for all new notifications on coming episodes. Cheers, Muses.